Ethan had always dreamed of exploring new worlds, but he never expected to find one like this. The planet Zarathus was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its vast golden deserts stretched far beyond the horizon, and towering crystal mountains shimmered in the distance. Ethan's ship had landed just outside the borders of a dense alien jungle. He had come here on a simple exploration mission. Things were about to take a turn he could never have predicted. The air was thick with the sounds of strange creatures and the scent of wild flowers mixed with the fresh earth. Ethan, suited in his standard exploration gear, stepped cautiously into the jungle. The vegetation here was lush and vibrant, with plants that seemed to move on their own, reacting to his every step. It was clear this was a place teeming with life, though it was nothing like Earth. He had only just begun to explore when he heard a rustling sound in the trees. Ethan froze, instinctively reaching for the blaster on his belt. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement, and before he could react, a figure emerged from the dense foliage. It was a woman. She was tall, with long dark hair flowing behind her like a wave of midnight. Her skin had a soft blue hue, and her eyes shone like twin stars, a glowing silver that reflected the sunlight. She was wearing armor, but it wasn't like anything Ethan had seen before. The armor seemed to be part of her, an organic material that seemed to shift with her movements. Ethan's heart raced. He had read about alien species before, but this was the first time he had encountered one in person. His first instinct was to speak, but the words caught in his throat. The woman, who looked to be about his age, was staring at him with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with authority. Ethan struggled to speak, feeling the weight of her gaze. I'm an explorer from Earth. My ship. It crashed here. I didn't mean to intrude." The woman's expression softened for a brief moment, though the suspicion in her eyes remained. "You are far from home, human. This is the land of the Zarathians. You should not be here." Ethan blinked, trying to process what she had just said. Zarathians? Mind racing. He'd never heard of a species by that name. "I didn't mean to offend anyone. My ship is damaged and I need help." The woman glanced at the sky as though weighing her options. Ethan could tell she was deciding whether to trust him. After a long moment, she nodded and motioned for him to follow. "Come," she said.
What?
"You may explain yourself in our village. But understand this. The Zarathians do not take kindly to trespassers, especially those from distant worlds." Ethan, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation, followed the mysterious woman through the jungle. She moved with ease, her steps light and graceful, as though the jungle was a part of her. He found it difficult to keep up with her, paced as they walked. The woman didn't speak much, but Ethan could feel the weight of her presence. The air around them seemed to shimmer, as though charged with an energy he couldn't explain. There was something about her that made Ethan feel both awed and intimidated at the same time. Soon, they arrived at a clearing, and Ethan's eyes widened at what he saw. In the center stood a massive structure, a grand temple-like building that appeared to be made from a mixture of stone and crystal. It rose high into the sky, its spires glistening in the sunlight. Around it were smaller huts, all built from natural materials, with intricate carvings on their walls. The people of this world were unlike anything Ethan had imagined. There were men and women, all with the same glowing eyes as the woman who had led him here. Their skin, like hers, had a soft blue tint, and they wore clothing and armor that seemed to flow with their movements. Despite their peaceful appearance, there was a sharpness in their gaze, a strength that seemed to radiate from their every pore. "This is the heart of Zarathus," the woman said, turning to face him. "I am Princess Alara, heir to the throne. Of the Zarathians, you will address me as such." Ethan swallowed, trying to find his voice. "I'm Ethan," he said, offering a small smile. "I'm from Earth. I didn't know about your planet or your people until now." Princess Alara nodded but said nothing more. She led him to one of the smaller huts where an elder Zarathian was waiting. The elder looked at Ethan with suspicion, his silver eyes narrowing. He spoke in a language that Ethan couldn't understand, and Alara quickly translated. "Who are you to come to our land uninvited?" the elder asked. Ethan tried to explain himself, but his words faltered under the weight of the elder's gaze. Felt completely out of place here, unsure of how to navigate this strange alien world. All he wanted was to get his ship repaired and leave, but it seemed his arrival had caused more problems than he could have imagined. "We did not ask for your kind to visit," the elder continued, "and yet you are here. Tell me what is it that you seek?" Ethan paused, realizing that his situation was becoming more complicated by the second. He had hoped for an easy fix, but now it seemed that everything was about to change. "I seek help," he said simply. "My ship is damaged. I can't leave without assistance. I don't want trouble." The elder's eyes softened, though his suspicion remained. "Help," he repeated. "It seems the stars have a different plan for you, human." Princess Alara stepped forward, her gaze never leaving Ethan. "We will decide what happens to you, Earthling. You are not in control here." Ethan knew he was at the mercy of the Zarathians now. His future was uncertain, and whatever lay ahead. He was certain that it would be nothing like he had imagined when he first set foot on this alien world. Ethan sat in the dimly lit hut, his back stiff and his mind racing. He had never felt so out of place. Princess Alara and the elder had left him alone to think. And as he sat on the wooden bench, his thoughts were all over the place. The strange, glowing eyes of the Zarathians, their whispers in a language he didn't understand. And now, his damaged ship, everything felt overwhelming just a few hours ago. He had thought his biggest challenge would be fixing his ship. Now, it seemed like he had walked straight into something much bigger. Suddenly, the door to the hut creaked open. Ethan looked up to see Alara standing in the doorway. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held a certain intensity. Stepped inside, the soft rustle of her cloak filling the room. "You will come with me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "There is something you need to know." Ethan stood quickly, eager for answers. "What is it? Why did you bring me here?" Alara motioned for him to follow. "Come," he obeyed, stepping out into the cool evening air. The village around him was quiet now, the sound of the jungle fading into the background. Lara led him toward the largest building in the village, the grand temple he had seen earlier as they walked. Lara's pace was slow but determined. "You are not the first outsider to land on Zarathus," she began, her voice softening slightly. "But you are the first to drink from the chalice." Ethan was confused. "The chalice?" Lara nodded, her eyes distant for a moment. "Chalice of bonding. It is an ancient relic, a sacred object of the Zarathians. It is said that drinking from it connects to beings in ways that cannot be undone. It ties their fates, their very souls together." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He had heard the word bond before, but he didn't understand the true meaning of what Alara was telling him. "Wait, you mean when I drank from it, that connected me to you?" Alara glanced at him, her eyes still glowing softly. "Yes, but it is more than just a connection. The bond is not only spiritual, it is physical as well. Your blood and mine are now linked. The bond is stronger than any bond between species. It cannot be undone." Ethan's mind spun as he tried to make sense of what Alara had just said. "But I didn't know it would do something like this. I was just trying to get a drink. Thought it was just some kind of ritual." Alara stopped walking, turning to face him. There was a seriousness in her gaze that Ethan couldn't ignore. "It is no simple ritual. Chalice chooses who it bonds with. It is a decision beyond the control of any Zarathian. Once the bond is formed, it is eternal." Ethan swallowed hard. The idea of being forever connected to this alien princess, someone he had just met, was terrifying. His mind raced with questions. Was this going to change his life forever? Is he going to be trapped on this alien world because of one careless mistake? "Does anyone else know?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Only the elder knows," Alara said. "He sensed the bond immediately. And he has his own reasons for wanting to separate us." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Why? Why would he want to separate us? Alara hesitated, her eyes flickering with emotion. "The bond between us is not just a spiritual connection. It is a symbol of power, or those among the Zarathians who see it as a threat. They fear what the bond could mean for the future. Of our people, there are ancient prophecies that speak of the union of two worlds, one human, one Zarathian, that will lead to a new age. But not everyone believes this prophecy is a good thing. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. So you're telling me that by drinking from the chalice, I've become part of some prophecy? Yes, Ilara replied, but the prophecy is not fully understood. Some believe it is a blessing. Others see it as a curse. The elders are divided, and those who fear the unknown will do anything to sever the bond between us. Ethan tried to process everything. It was hard to believe what Ilara was saying. One moment he was just a stranded human on a strange planet, and the next he was part of some ancient prophecy that could change the fate of two worlds. The weight of it all felt too much to bear. Is there any way to undo this? Ethan asked, his voice desperate. Ilara shook her head. Once the bond is formed, it cannot be broken. But there is more at stake here than just you and me. The bond is not just between two people, it is between two species. If we do not understand the full meaning of the bond, we risk destabilizing the entire kingdom. Ethan couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. He just wanted to fix his ship and go home. Now he was trapped in a situation that he couldn't control, surrounded by politics, prophecy, and a people who saw him as an outsider. It was all too much to take in. Ilara led him up the steps of the Grand Temple, her expression hardening. As they reached the top, the doors to the temple creaked open, revealing a room filled with Zarathian elders, each of them watching him with a mixture of curiosity and distrust. In the center of the room stood an ancient altar, its surface covered in strange symbols that Ethan couldn't understand. Ilara turned to him, her voice low and serious. You must understand, Ethan. The bond we share is more than just between you and me. It is between our peoples, and its consequences could change everything. Ethan's stomach churned as he took in the weight of her words. He had no idea what was coming next, but he knew one thing for sure: his life, possibly the fate of two worlds, was now in the hands of a bond he never asked for. Ethan felt a weight settle on his chest as the doors to the temple closed behind him. The elders of the Zarathian Council were seated in a semicircle, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Ilara stood beside him, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut through. The air was heavy with anticipation, and Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that his entire fate, and possibly the fate of this world, rested on the next few moments. One of the elders, an older Zarathian, with silver hair and a long robe that shimmered like the stars, rose from his seat. His voice echoed through the chamber, deep and commanding. Ilara, the elder began, his eyes narrowing. You know the ancient law. No outsider should be allowed to form a bond with a Zarathian. This is not just a violation of our customs, but a threat to our future. Ilara stood firm, her shoulders squared, though Ethan could see the hint of fear in her eyes. The bond is not a threat, she replied. Her voice calm but firm. It was a sign of something greater, something that could unite our two worlds, in a way that has never been done before. The elder's gaze shifted to Ethan, and Ethan felt as though the entire weight of the universe had suddenly been placed on him. He cleared his throat, trying to steady his nerves. I didn't mean for this to happen, Ethan said, his voice trembling slightly. I didn't even know the bond existed. I just drank from the chalice. I didn't know it was sacred. I didn't know it would do this. Another elder, a woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes, stood up next. Her voice was cold and sharp. And now you stand here, human, with a power you don't understand. A power that could change everything. The bond between you and our princess cannot be taken lightly. We must decide if we will allow this to continue, or if it must be severed. Ethan's heart raced. He had no idea what they meant by severing the bond, but he didn't think he wanted to find out. The thought of losing the connection to Ilara, however strange it was, felt like a loss he couldn't bear. Please, Ethan said, his voice more desperate now. I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to fix my ship and leave. I don't want any of this. If there's some way to undo it, I'll do whatever it takes. Lara's eyes flicked to him, and for a brief moment, he saw a softening in her expression. It was brief, but it was enough to make him think that she, too, was unsure about what the council wanted. But the elder with silver hair spoke again, his voice colder this time. The bond cannot be undone, child. Once formed, it is permanent. Your blood is tied to hers, and hers to yours. There is no going back. Ethan was stunned. He had known the bond would be powerful, but he hadn't known it was this deep, this unbreakable. It felt like his heart had dropped into his stomach. What does that mean for me? He asked, his voice quiet. The elder gave him a long look before replying. It means that you are no longer just a visitor here. You are part of the Zarathian world now, and your connection to our princess could change everything. The strength of this bond is more than you can imagine. Ethan glanced at Alara, and for the first time he saw her uncertainty. She had always been strong, confident, and in control. But now there was a vulnerability in her eyes that he had never seen before. The woman elder spoke again. We must decide what to do with you. The bond between you and the princess has made you a target. There are those among us who believe that it is a sign of great power, but there are others who fear what it could mean. The bond between you and Alara could unite our two worlds, but it could also tear them apart. The council fell into silence, the weight of their words hanging heavy in the air. Ethan didn't know what to say. How could he have known that something so simple as drinking from a strange cup would lead to something so complicated? Alara, sensing his discomfort, stepped forward. The bond has already begun to change things, she said, her voice soft, but strong. I can feel it. I can feel your thoughts, your emotions. It's like we're connected in a way I never thought possible. I don't fully understand it, but I know that this connection is not something to fear. It's something to embrace. The elders exchanged looks, their expressions unreadable. Finally, the elder with silver hair spoke again. You speak of embracing this bond, Alara, but what of the consequences? What if this bond leads to war? What if it brings destruction instead of peace? Lara's voice was firm, but there was a quiet sadness in it. I cannot say what the future holds. I know that I trust this bond, and I trust Ethan. Council members muttered among themselves, and Ethan could see that they were divided. Some of them looked at him with suspicion, while others seemed to soften at Alara's words. But no one spoke for what felt like an eternity. Finally, the elder with silver hair sighed deeply and sat back down. The decision is not mine alone, he said. We will put it to a vote. But know this, human. You are not free of consequences. If the bond between you and Alara leads to disaster, it will be on your head. Ethan felt a knot tighten in his chest. The council had given him no choice, and the consequences of his actions were far greater than he had imagined. His connection to Alara could either save or destroy everything. And now, there was no turning back. Alara stood by his side, her eyes meeting his. The strength in her gaze gave him a sense of comfort, even in the face of the uncertainty ahead. But he knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened next, he wasn't going to face it alone. The decision from the council came faster than Ethan had expected. Late that evening, Alara led him to a smaller room near the temple, away from the eyes of the council. The air felt different here, cooler, almost as if it carried a sense of foreboding. Ethan's heart still raced from the council meeting. They had agreed to put the decision to a vote, but the tension in the room was unbearable. The elders were divided. Some believed the bond was a sign of destiny, while others feared its consequences. Lara hadn't said much during the meeting, but Ethan could tell she was troubled. Her normally strong and composed demeanor had cracked slightly, showing her uncertainty. What happens now? Ethan asked, breaking the silence as they sat together in the room. What do we do? Ilara looked at him, her glowing eyes flickering with emotions Ethan couldn't quite place. Now, we wait, she replied, her voice soft but firm. The council will decide. They have to choose whether to allow the bond to continue or break it. It is not a decision they will make lightly. I have never seen such division among them before. Ethan sighed, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on him. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know it was possible. I just drank from the chalice. I know, Ilara said, her voice softer now. The bond is formed, and it is not just between you and me. It is between our worlds. It is not something that can be undone easily. Ethan rubbed his temples. His mind was racing with thoughts. But one question kept coming back to him. What does the council fear exactly? If this bond is such a big deal, why are they so divided? Ilara hesitated, as though choosing her words carefully. They fear change. Our people have lived a certain way for centuries. The idea of uniting with another species, especially humans, terrifies them. We have no history with your kind. They believe that if we embrace this bond, we will be opening the gates to something we cannot control. They fear that it could lead to war or conflict, not peace. Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He hadn't meant to cause a war. He hadn't even known about the bond when he first drank from the chalice. He was just a stranded traveler, desperate to fix his ship and get back home. But now his actions had tied him to something far bigger than himself. But isn't it possible? Ethan asked, his voice filled with doubt. I mean, maybe this bond could be a good thing. It could bring your people and mine together. Yeah. Ilara looked at him, a flicker of hope in her eyes. I believe that too, but not everyone agrees with me. There are those who see the bond as a threat to everything we have worked for, and they will stop at nothing to break it. Just then, the door to the room opened, and one of the guards entered. His expression was serious, and he bowed his head to Ilara. Princess, the council has reached a decision. They will meet again in the morning to announce it. Ethan's stomach churned at the thought of what that decision might be. What if they decided to sever the bond? What if they decided to force him to leave, to send him back to his ship without any hope of a future? With Ilara or the Zarathian people? We will be there, Ilara said, standing up. Come. We must prepare. Ethan followed her, his heart still heavy with worry. As they walked through the halls of the temple, he couldn't help but feel the weight of his situation. He was stuck in a world he didn't understand, caught in a political struggle that was far beyond his control. When they reached the council chamber, the doors were already open. The council members were seated in their usual places, their glowing eyes fixed on Ilara and Ethan as they entered. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. This was at the moment that could change everything. Ilara sat beside him, her presence steady and reassuring. She gave him a brief glance, her hand subtly brushing against his. Ethan could feel the bond pulsing between them, stronger now than ever before. The elder with silver hair stood once more, his voice cutting through the tension in the room. The council has deliberated, and the vote has been cast. We are here to make a decision on the bond that is formed between Princess Ilara and the human Ethan. Ethan swallowed hard. He couldn't look at Ilara, but he could feel her presence beside him, and it gave him the strength to face what was coming. We are divided, the elder continued. Some believe that this bond is a sign of great potential, a chance to unite our people with another world, a chance for peace and prosperity. Others see it as a dangerous path, one that could lead to conflict, division, and chaos. Ethan felt his palms begin to sweat. The council members exchanged tense glances, and Ilara remained quiet, her hands resting on the table in front of her. Finally, the elder raised his hand. We have voted, but the decision is as follows. The bond between Ilara and Ethan will remain. In place, however, there are conditions. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Conditions? The elder nodded. The bond will be allowed to continue, but only if certain rules are followed. Ethan will not be allowed to leave the planet unless the council deems it necessary. Ilara and Ethan will undergo a series of trials to prove that their bond is truly beneficial, not just to themselves, but to both of our peoples. Ethan blinked, unsure of what to say. Trials. Yes, the elder replied. You will undergo trials that will test your loyalty, your strength, and your ability to work together. Only once you have passed these trials will the council fully accept your bond. Ilara's gaze met Ethan's, and for a moment he could see the worry in her eyes. But there was something else there, to determination. We will do it, Ilara said firmly. We will prove that the bond is real and that it is worth the risk. Ethan nodded, though his mind was still reeling from the decision. The trials would not be easy, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for what lay ahead. But one thing was certain. He wasn't going to back down. Whatever came next, he and Ilara would face it together. The morning after the council's decision, Ethan found himself standing in the center of the village, surrounded by Zarathian soldiers. Ilara stood beside him, her expression steady but serious, as though she was preparing for a battle. She had changed into her ceremonial armor. Its polished surface gleamed under the bright sunlight. Ethan had never seen her look so fierce. He could feel the bond between them pulsing with intensity. Their shared connection seemed to grow stronger with every passing minute, as though the bond itself was preparing them for the trials ahead. The trials will not be easy, Ilara said, her voice low, but there was a firmness to it. They are designed to test every aspect of our bond, our trust, our strength, and our ability to work together. Many have failed these trials before, but we will not. Ethan nodded, his stomach tightening with nerves. The council's decision had left him with more questions than answers. He had been told that the trials would prove whether the bond was truly a force for good, but no one had explained exactly what they would entail. All he knew was that failure could mean the end of their connection, the severing of their fates forever. Ilara seemed to sense his uncertainty. She turned to him, her silver eyes meeting his with a hint of understanding. You don't have to be afraid. We are in this together. We will face whatever comes next. Ethan tried to steady his breathing. I'm not afraid of failing, he said, though his voice wavered slightly. I just don't want to let you down. I didn't ask for any of this, Ilara. I don't even know how I ended up here, but I'm not going to walk away. Ilara smiled, her expression softening. That's all I need to hear. The sound of footsteps interrupted their moment. The elder with silver hair walked up to them, his gaze as sharp as ever. Behind him were several other council members, their eyes filled with quiet judgment. He spoke without preamble. The first trial will begin now, the elder announced. It will test your ability to fight together, to defend each other. The trials will take place in the arena. You will face challenges that will require both your strength and your mind. Working together, can you succeed? Ethan glanced at Ilara. What kind of challenges? The elder's lips curled into a thin smile. We'll see soon enough. The arena was located on the outskirts of the village. It was a large open space surrounded by high stone walls. As they approached, Ethan could hear the faint sounds of movement from inside, as though the arena itself was alive, waiting for the participants. When they stepped inside, Ethan was taken aback by the sight before him. The arena was not just a place for physical combat. It was a landscape of varied terrains, rocky cliffs, deep pits, dense forests, and rivers that seemed to flow in every direction. This was not just a test of physical strength. It was a test of their adaptability, their ability to think on their feet, and their trust in each other. A loud horn sounded, signaling the beginning of the trial. The elder's voice echoed through the arena. You will face both physical and mental challenges. Work together, and you will succeed. Fail, and the bond will be severed. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He had never been in a situation like this before, and the stakes couldn't be higher. But as he looked at Ilara, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. She had been his guide since he arrived on this world, and now it was his turn to stand. By her, Ilara's voice broke through his thoughts. We start together, Ethan. Trust me, and trust yourself. Without another word, she took off toward the first obstacle, a set of massive stone columns that seemed to shift and move as they advanced. Ethan followed closely behind, doing his best to match her pace. He was no warrior, but he was determined to prove that he was worthy of the bond that had formed between them. As they reached the columns, they noticed something strange. The stones were covered in intricate symbols, glowing faintly. Ilara reached out and touched one of them, and immediately the columns began to separate, revealing a hidden passage. The two of them entered cautiously. I've never seen anything like this, Ethan said, glancing around. What is this place? It is a trial, Alara explained. These symbols are part of the arena's design. They test your mind and your ability to decipher ancient Zarathian knowledge. If we are to succeed, we must work together. Ethan nodded, focusing on the task at hand. As they continued through the passage, they encountered several more obstacles puzzles that required both logic and physical agility. At one point, they had to scale a high wall using only a series of ropes and pulleys. Another, they had to solve a riddle that unlocked the next door. Through each challenge, Ethan realized something important. He wasn't just relying on Alara. For guidance, he was learning to trust himself more. The bond between them, which had once seemed like a curse, was now starting to feel like a strength. He could feel her presence in his mind, guiding him when he wasn't sure what to do. But he was also learning to trust his own instincts. The final challenge of the first trial came when they reached a large, open area in the center of the arena. In front of them stood a towering beasteed's body, covered in scales that shimmered like molten lava, its eyes glowing red with rage. Ethan froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. The creature was massive, far larger than anything he had faced before. But Alara stepped forward, her eyes filled with determination. "We fight together," she said simply, and without hesitation. She drew a weapon from her side, long. Glowing sword, Ethan quickly grabbed a weapon of his own, a spear that had been left by the council. He had no idea how to fight like Alara, but he knew that this was a fight they had to win. The creature roared, charging toward them with terrifying speed. Alara was the first to move, her sword flashing as she slashed at the beast. Ethan followed her lead, using the spear to defend and attack when he could. The battle was fierce, but together they fought as one. They moved in sync, anticipating each other's moves, combining their strengths to take down the creature. And after what felt like an eternity, the creature finally fell, collapsing to the ground with a mighty thud. Breathing heavily, Ethan looked at Alara, his heart racing. "We did it," Alara smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "We did." The creature lay still, the arena's doors opened, and the elder appeared once more, his eyes narrowed but impressed. "You have passed the first trial," he said, "but there is still much to prove. The next trial will test you further." Ethan and Alara exchanged a look. The trials were far from over, but they had proven something important. They could rely on each other, and no matter what came next, they would face it together. The trials were not over. After their success in the first test, Ethan and Alara were given little time to rest before they were thrust into the next challenge. The council had made it clear that the trials would test every aspect of their bond: physical, mental, and emotional. This trial pushed them further, demanding more than they had thought they were capable of. Ethan couldn't deny that the bond between him and Alara was growing stronger. It was as if they could feel each other's emotions, share each other's thoughts in ways they hadn't before. At first, it had been unsettling. Now, it was becoming second nature. They no longer had to speak to understand each other. They moved as one, their actions and decisions guided by an invisible thread that connected them. The second trial had been the most difficult. They had been forced to navigate a maze filled with traps, riddles, and obstacles that required both wit and strength. There had been moments when Ethan doubted their ability to succeed, but Alara's calm determination kept him focused. Together, they had solved the puzzles, avoided the traps, made their way through the maze to the final chamber. Now, they stood before the council once again, their bodies tired, but their spirits unbroken.
Ow.
The air in the council chamber was thick with anticipation. The final trial loomed ahead, and this time it would test more than just their physical abilities. The elder with silver hair stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he looked at Ethan and Alara. "You have proven your strength and your bond. But now, the final trial will test your hearts. You will face a choice, one that will determine the future of your bond and the future of Zarathus. The council has decided that you must choose. Do you want to remain together, or do you part ways and sever the bond between you?" The words hit Ethan like a punch to the chest. Sever the bond. It was unimaginable. He had come to rely on Alara more than he had ever thought possible. They had faced every trial together, and now they were being asked to make the hardest decision. Of all, Alara's hand brushed against his, and he felt the familiar warmth of the bond between them. Her eyes met his, and in that moment, Thene knew what her answer would be. "I will not part with you," Alara said quietly, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "This bond is more than just an obligation. It is a part of who we are. Now, I choose to stay with you, Ethan, no matter what the consequences may be." Ethan felt a surge of emotion rush through him. He had never felt so certain about anything in his life. "I choose you too, Alara. I don't care what comes next. I don't want to lose this bond." The elder's expression softened, but there was still a sternness in his eyes. "Very well. If that is your choice, then you must face the final test." Ethan and Alara exchanged a glance. The room seemed to grow colder, and the pressure of the decision weighed heavily on them. The elder raised his hand, and the floor beneath them began to shift, opening into a deep, dark pit. A low hum filled the air as the chamber transformed before their eyes. The pit was filled with swirling shadows, and in its depths, Ethan could feel something ancient and powerful stirring. "This is the test," the elder said. "You must descend into the pit and face what lies within. Only by confronting your deepest fears and overcoming them will you truly prove that your bond is unbreakable." Ethan's heart raced. He had no idea what lay ahead, but the thought of facing his fears in a place like this was terrifying. But Alara was beside him, and he knew that as long as they were together, they could face anything. Alara's voice broke through his thoughts. "We do this together. Whatever's in that pit, we will face it as one." With a deep breath, Ethan nodded. Together, they stepped into the pit, the shadows closing in around them. The air was thick with an oppressive weight, and the ground beneath their feet felt unstable. It was as if the very world around them was shifting, changing, becoming something else entirely. They moved forward, their footsteps echoing in the silence. As they walked deeper into the pit, the shadows seemed to come alive, swirling around them. Ethan could feel a chill run through him, and suddenly, images began to form in the darkness. He saw flashes of his past memories of his home on Earth, his family, his friends. He saw his ship, the one that had brought him to Zarathus, but it was broken, lying in ruins. And then he saw himself alone, drifting in space, cut off from everything and everyone he knew. For a moment, panic gripped him. The fear of being lost, of being alone again, almost overwhelmed him. But then, he felt Eiler's hand in his. He turned to look at her, and she was there, her expression calm, her eyes filled with strength. "You are not alone," she whispered. "Not anymore. We are together in this." With her words, the fear began to fade. The shadows that had threatened to consume him receded, and the pit seemed to lose its grip on him. Together they continued to walk, facing the darkness head-on. And slowly the images faded, replaced by a soft light that grew brighter as they moved forward. Finally, they reached the heart of the pit, a small, glowing orb suspended in the air. It pulsed with energy, and Ethan could feel its power radiating out, filling the room. Alara stepped forward, her hand reaching out to touch the orb, as her fingers brushed against its surface. A wave of warmth spread through the room, and the darkness vanished. The pit was no longer a place of fear and uncertainty. It was a place of peace and understanding. The elder's voice echoed through the chamber. "You have done it. You have faced your fears and proven that your bond is unbreakable. You have shown that you are worthy of each other." Ethan and Alara stood together, their hands still intertwined. The trials were over, and the decision had been made. They had chosen each other, and now they would face the future together. Whatever it held, the council's decision was final. Their bond was not just a symbol of strength, it was a force that would shape the future of Zarathus and Earth. And together, they would build a future where their worlds were no longer divided, but united in peace.